The gavel cracks and the room stiffens like glass. Judge Harper said, "The defendant is acquitted." Maya Reed said, "Not again," and her breath snagged like thread on a nail. Daniel Price said, "Stay with me. We planned for this," and his voice tried to catch her fall. Jonah Hale said, "We appeal. We regroup. We move smart," while his phone pulsed with unread warnings. Evelyn Ross said, "Justice is fragile when handled by the desperate," and her smile did not move her eyes. The defense laughed in a corner that smelled of polished oak and victory. Maya touched the sealed letter in her pocket and counted heartbeats. Daniel said, "We keep the story straight," but the story refused to stand still. Jonah said, "Chain of custody failed on purpose," and the words felt oil. Maya said, "Then we break the chain." Night wind knifed through the courthouse steps as city sirens stitched the dark. Daniel Price said, "We can file a motion in the morning," and his breath smoked like a promise. Maya Reed said morning felt honest once, and she stared at the stain of streetlight on stone. Jonah Hale said, "Chain of custody anomalies multiply in clusters," while his eyes scanned the parking lot. Evelyn Ross stood beneath a lamp and did not bother to hide. Maya said, "Lily was the chain, and the name cut the air." Daniel said, "We do this slowly, and we do it right," and the words were a blanket with holes. Jonah said, "I will call in a favor," and his jaw clicked. Maya said, "If favors fix truth, then truth is already lost," and she finally stepped off the last stair. A phone buzzed in the motel room like a trapped fly. Maya Reed said, "Say your name," and the voice on the line wavered with street static. Lex Ortiz said, "You do not know me, but I know what was erased," and the word hung crooked. Daniel Price said, "Hang up," but he did not reach for the phone. Lex Ortiz said, "The footage was swapped 2 minutes before intake, and the truth clicked like a lock." Maya said, "Why tell me?" and her shadow folded over the bed. Lex said, "Because I was there, and I am tired of being no one," and a city bus howled through the wall. Daniel said, "Meet in a crowded place," and the room felt smaller. Maya said, "Tomorrow," and the line went dead like a closing eye. The diner smelled like coffee and regret, which is to say it was honest. Jonah Hale said, "The evidence locker log was edited by a ghost account, and his spoon traced circles." Maya Reed said, "Ghosts do not cash paychecks," and the cashier rang up a silence. Daniel Price said, "If we expose the edit trail, we burn a bridge," and his voice trembled under the hum. Jonah said, "Bridges burn from both ends when the river is money," and he slid a folded printout across Chrome. Maya said, "We push anyway," and the neon blink timed her resolve. Evelyn Ross said, "You push, I pull," from a booth behind them, and she did not rise. Daniel said, "We are done letting power name the past," and the coffee cooled without a fight. Sun scraped the rooftops and left the street blinking. Maya Reed said, "Today we break the chain," and she tucked the sealed letter deeper into her coat. Daniel Price said, "We document everything, no leaps," and he locked the door behind them. Jonah Hale said, "I know someone inside records," and his voice measured each word. A bus hissed and sprayed the curb like a warning. Evelyn Ross said, "Chains do not break, they transfer," from across the sidewalk, and her gaze pinned the morning. Maya said, "Then I will be the transfer point," and the city exhaled. Daniel said, "We will hold the line," and the day finally started. Somewhere a memory hummed like a light left on. Maya Reed carried her silence like a locked box, sitting in her apartment with the blinds half drawn. Daniel Price said, "You haven't eaten all day," and set a paper bag on the counter. Maya said, "Food does not fill the holes the verdict left," and she touched the sealed letter without opening it. Jonah Hale leaned against the doorframe and said, "We should be mapping our moves, not starving out grief," but his eyes softened as he watched her shrink. Daniel said, "We do both, because time won't wait for us." Maya said, "Time has been waiting to crush me for years," and her voice cracked. The phone vibrated with Lex's name. Unread. Daniel said, "Ignore it for one meal," and pushed the bag toward her. Jonah said, even fighters need calories, and the moment sagged under their care. Maya whispered, I don't want care. I want justice. The warm comforter moved like a lighthouse into the storm, entering with gentle steps. Clara Hayes said, You do not need to carry this alone, her late 30s face open with practiced warmth. Maya Reed said, Carrying is all I know, and her knuckles stayed white on the envelope. Daniel Price said, She listens, Maya, and leaned back as if yielding space. Clara said, Listening is not saving, but it is air, and she touched Maya's shoulder with a calm weight. Maya said, Air doesn't mend chains. Clara smiled softly and said, Chains break easier when many hands pull. Jonah Hale said, Careful whose hands you trust, and his stare was flint. Clara's expression flickered for a second before she steadied, her voice low. Even mistrust is a kind of faith. The room breathed slower, though no one felt safe. Maya stood at the memorial wall, stone cold, and streaked with winter rain. She whispered, I came back again, and her breath fogged against the carved names. Jonah Hale said, This place anchors you, though his voice held unease. Daniel Price said, We should not linger, someone could be watching, but he stayed close. Maya traced Lily's name with a trembling finger. She said, She deserved more than memory. Jonah said, Memory is fuel, not ash. Daniel said, Fuel burns too fast, and pulled her hood higher against the wind. Maya said, She was the chain, and I was the brake. A crow shrieked overhead, the sound splintering the silence. Daniel said, We carry her differently now. Maya said, No, I carry her the same, always, and her lips pressed against the wet stone. At the safe house kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Jonah Hale said, I traced the account, Ghost IP, routed through 3 states. Maya Reed said, Ghosts still leave footprints, and set her phone down. Daniel Price said, If we go public too early we kill leverage, and his brow furrowed. Clara Hayes said, Sometimes exposure is the only shield, her hand steady on her teacup. Maya said, Shield or coffin? I don't know anymore. Jonah said, Our enemy writes history while we debate commas. Daniel said, History is nothing without proof. Clara said, Proof bends when money leans on it, her eyes downcast. Maya said, Then we brace it with truth, even if it breaks me, and the fridge hum grew louder like a warning siren hidden in plain noise. Maya Reed walked the empty playground at dawn, swings creaking in the cold wind. She said, I dreamed of her here, and her voice barely carried. Daniel Price said, Dreams don't lie, they remind, and he steadied the swing beside her. Jonah Hale said, Dreams distract us when we need clarity, his eyes scanning the fog. Clara Hayes said, Dreams are warnings if you listen carefully, her words almost tender. Maya touched the rusted chain and said, This one never broke. Daniel said, Not all chains bind, some anchor. Jonah said, Anchors also drown, and his jaw tightened. Maya said, Then I will choose the weight myself. A child's laugh echoed faintly. Or maybe memory tricked them. Clara said, Sometimes memory wants to be heard, and her gaze lingered too long. The storage unit smelled of rust and secrets. Jonah Hale said, Chain of custody means nothing when the lock is fake, as he pried open a dented metal box. Maya Reed said, Then show me what survives, her hands steady but her breath uneven. Daniel Price said, This is already dangerous, as his eyes scanned the empty lock. Inside the box, a folder of photographs curled at the edges. Maya whispered, Lily is in these, and her throat clenched. Jonah said, They tried to bury this in metal and dust. Daniel said, Evidence only matters if we live to use it. Maya said, Then I will bleed to keep it breathing. The unit's bulb flickered and cast them into sudden shadow. Jonah said, The ghosts are watching too, and slammed the lid shut. By morning, the evidence folder was gone. Maya Reed said, We locked the door, and her voice rattled like loose glass. Daniel Price said, Locks bend when money leans, and slammed his fist against the frame. Jonah Hale said, "It means someone inside is watching us closer than we thought." Maya whispered, "We were in their palm the whole time." Clara Hayes said, "Then you break fingers, not just locks," her tone soft but sharp. Daniel said, "If we accuse without proof, we lose what little ground we stand on." Jonah said, "If we wait, we lose the war entirely." Maya said, "War already started the moment Lily disappeared." The empty drawer gaped like a wound in the room. The reluctant firestarter entered the story with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. Alex Ward said, "You're looking in the wrong files," his 16-year-old voice restless with defiance. Maya Reed said, "Who are you?" and her tone carved the silence. Alex said, "The one who saw them trade truth for ash." Jonah Hale said, "This is a child, but his jaw betrayed curiosity." Daniel Price said, "Children don't come with maps to sealed archive." Alex snapped, "I do, and I don't waste words." Maya said, "Then don't waste mine," and leaned closer. Alex's sketchbook opened to a drawing of Lily's face. Maya whispered, "That's her," and her pulse stumbled. Alex said, "I know where they keep the rest." Silence shattered like glass around them. In the alley, trust cracked. Jonah Hale said, "We share too much too fast," and kept scanning rooftops. Maya Reed said, "Secrets are what kill us," and her voice rose with the cold air. Daniel Price said, "I agree with Jonah, patience matters," but his eyes lingered on Alex Ward too long. Alex said, "You don't trust me because I'm young," and kicked a bottle into the gutter. Maya said, "I trust what bleeds honesty." Jonah said, "Honesty dies first in war," his tone clipped. Daniel said, "Enough. We hold back until we know." Maya said, "Then Lily dies again every time you wait," her throat shaking. Silence sat heavy until Alex muttered, "Maybe she never died at all." That truth carved the night open. By the time the rooftop meeting ended, power pressed closer. Evelyn Ross said, "You should not be here," her 48-year-old voice wrapped in steel. Maya Reed said, "Neither should you," her eyes burning in the cold night wind. Jonah Hale said, "If she's watching, then the system already knows," and his shoulders locked. Daniel Price said, "Evelyn has always been too close to the center," his voice shaking. Alex Ward said, "She isn't center. She's the hand that writes the script." Evelyn smiled faintly and said, "Truth is just clay for stronger fingers." Maya said, "Then I'll smash the hands," her pulse steady for the first time. Evelyn said, "Clay remembers who shapes it," and turned into shadow. Silence left them hollow as dawn threatened the horizon. The basement archive smelled of damp paper and regret, the kind of place where secrets choke instead of sleep. Marcus Lee said, "I was the one who signed the chain, and I lied," his voice hollow, echoing against rusted pipes. Maya Reed said, "Why confess now?" her fists trembling as her breath frosted in the stale air. Marcus said, "Because rot spreads, and silence rots fastest of all." Daniel Price said, "You had the power years ago," his jaw grinding as if chewing stone. Marcus said, "They threatened my family, so I gave them yours instead." Jonah Hale said, "What family are you talking about?" his tone sharp as glass. Marcus said, "The girl, Lily, was my niece," and his face crumpled. Maya stumbled back, whispering, "She was my blood too," and the words fractured her. Dust fell from the ceiling like snow, marking the moment truth collapsed. Marcus said, "I buried her fate so both of us could keep breathing." Silence stayed heavier than chains. The abandoned church carried the hush of forgotten prayers, its cracked, stained glass bleeding colors across the floor. Alex Ward flipped open his sketchbook, his hands restless. Alex said, "I drew what I saw, and it wasn't an accident." Maya Reed said, "Then show me," her eyes hard and bright. Alex turned the page, revealing Lily's face, rendered in rough charcoal but alive in memory. He said, She was led away by someone close, someone you all trusted. Daniel Price said, That's impossible, his chest rising uneven. Jonah Hale said, Give us the name, leaning closer into the fractured light. Alex snapped. It was Evelyn Ross, his 16-year-old voice sharp as a blade. Maya whispered, She was always too near Lily. Daniel muttered, We missed the signs. Clara Hayes said softly, Some truths slice deeper than lies. Alex shut the book hard, saying, You don't have time for doubt anymore. The church groaned as if mourning with them. At the safe house the air burned with suspicion thicker than smoke. Jonah Hale said, Someone here is feeding Evelyn, his voice slicing. Daniel Price snapped, You mean me, his shoulders rigid as if ready for trial. Maya Reed said, Enough, though her eyes betrayed doubt gnawing at her. Jonah said, You traded loyalty once for gain, his tone bitter as ash. Daniel said, I bled for this cause and stayed when it cost me everything. Clara Hayes said, Secrets eat through walls until they fall. Her words calm, her gaze unreadable. Jonah said, This wall is already crumbling under your weight. Daniel said, I sacrificed before, but never again, his voice breaking. Maya whispered, Then prove yourself, and the sealed letter trembled in her grip. The silence that followed pressed heavier than the room's walls, until even the refrigerator hum seemed accusatory. Shadows split Daniel's face in half, one side loyalty, one side betrayal. Rain pelted the cemetery like bullets from the heavens. Maya Reed knelt at Lily's grave and whispered, She deserved peace, tears lost in rain. Jonah Hale said, Peace is fantasy in a war like this, pulling his coat tight against the storm. Daniel Price said, Then we'll give her justice instead, though his voice faltered like a cracked bell. Clara Hayes touched the headstone gently, murmuring she was more than evidence, her voice breaking for once. Maya said she was blood, and her tears carved streaks down her soaked face. Alex Ward said, She was the thread keeping you together, before dropping his sketchbook into the mud, pages bleeding black. Maya shouted, I will not let Evelyn rewrite her story. Jonah said, Then be ready to fight her in open daylight. Daniel whispered, She's already prepared the ground, his words drowned by thunder. Lightning split the sky, their shadows jagged across the stones. On the courthouse rooftop, the storm raged like judgment itself. Evelyn Ross faced them, her black suit unruffled despite the gale. Evelyn said, I shaped truth because none of you could hold it, her voice steady steel. Maya Reed said, You stole Lily's life, her eyes blazing. Evelyn said, I preserved her fate to fit my design, her smile cold. Jonah Hale shouted, You corrupted every chain, his words ripped by the wind. Daniel Price said, We trusted you once, his face ghost white. Evelyn replied, Trust is only currency, and I spend it well. Clara Hayes whispered, You carved us open and called it justice. Alex Ward said, You're no judge, you're a thief of lives, fists clenched. Evelyn smiled thin and said, I am the system, and systems do not fall. Maya whispered, Then I'll break the system itself, her vow lit by lightning. Thunder swallowed their silence whole. The courtroom was suffocating, heavy with whispers and stormlight pressing through tall windows. Maya Reed said, This time, the truth speaks, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Daniel Price said, The system eats honesty alive, his tone dark. Jonah Hale muttered, But the system bleeds too, his gaze sharp at the prosecution table. Clara Hayes said, Words can shield or pierce. Choose wisely. Alex Ward slammed his sketchbook down and said, I saw Evelyn lead Lily away, his 16-year-old voice like flint. Evelyn Ross said, Children draw fantasies, her cold voice echoing. Maya said, Then let the jury see if fantasies bleed. The gavel cracked, and silence thundered. Shadows stretched across the walls like bars, locking them into the trial of their lives. The tension cracked open when Alex Ward shouted, She's lying, his hands trembling but his voice cutting like glass. Evelyn Ross said, Lies are currency, and you're broke, her lips curved in disdain. Maya Reed said, he carries the truth you tried to kill, her eyes blazing. Jonah Hale said, we followed the evidence, and every trail ends in your office, his voice tight with fury. Daniel Price slammed a file on the table and said, chain of custody was broken by your hand. Clara Hayes whispered, even silence bends toward guilt. The jury shifted uneasily, faces pale under fluorescent light. Evelyn leaned back, eyes steady, saying, truth bends to power, and I am power. Maya said, not for long, her words vibrating in the air like thunder ready to strike. The storm outside screamed against the glass as Daniel Price's voice broke. He said, I did betray once, but not today, his confession hanging like a noose. Jonah Hale snarled, you gave them the key, his fists shaking. Daniel shouted, I sacrificed to save lives, but it cost me everything. Maya Reed said, your cracks made space for Evelyn's grip, her face tight with anger. Clara Hayes whispered, betrayal wears many coats, some stitched with good intentions. Alex Ward said, intentions don't bring Lily back, his sketchbook clutched. Evelyn Ross said, every one of you is mine already, her words like venom. Maya slammed her palm on the table and said, then watch what freedom costs, her eyes locked. Lightning struck, rattling the courtroom windows in reply. The trial's rhythm broke when Evelyn Ross rose, her presence commanding silence. Evelyn said, I built this system from ashes, and you think you can topple it. Maya Reed said, we don't think, we know, her voice steel. Jonah Hale said, power rots and your smell is everywhere, his tone sharp. Daniel Price said, your fingerprints stain every file, his anger steady now. Clara Hayes said, even monuments crumble under weight they can't bear, her voice carrying sorrow. Alex Ward shouted, you can't erase the drawings in memory, his youth searing the air. Evelyn said, I erase everything. History bows to me. Maya whispered, not this time, and held Lily's photograph aloft. The jury gasped, the storm outside roaring in unison. The gavel slammed, but control slipped from Evelyn's grip. The climax tore through the room like lightning unchained. Maya Reed shouted, this is the chain breaking, her voice carrying above the storm. Evelyn Ross said, you can't kill what I've built, but her words cracked. Jonah Hale roared, then watch it collapse, pounding the table. Daniel Price said, I will not fail again, his voice loud, breaking through. Clara Hayes said, justice twists, but today it screams, her eyes brimming with tears. Alex Ward said, Lily's story ends with truth, not silence, his fist trembling in defiance. Evelyn's mask slipped, rage spilling across her face. Maya raised the sealed letter and tore it open, words spilling like fire. Gasps filled the courtroom as the final truth emerged. Lightning cracked, the storm's roar drowning Evelyn's silence. The verdict landed like a hammer on glass. The judge said, this court finds the accused guilty on counts 1 and 3, but not 4 and 5. His voice clipped fragile against the storm outside. Maya Reed gripped the table and whispered, part of her story is heard. Jonah Hale said, partial justice is a fracture that still bleeds, his stare locked on Evelyn. Daniel Price said, we win and we lose at once, his tone hollow. Evelyn Ross smirked and said, I remain untouched where it matters most, her calm slicing through the room. Clara Hayes murmured, justice can stumble and still leave a mark. Alex Ward slammed his sketchbook closed and said, she deserved all of it, not some of it. Maya said, this chain is cracked but not broken. Lightning shuddered, as if unsure who had truly won. Outside the courthouse, rain poured down like judgment refusing to end. Maya Reed said, the system cracked but refused to collapse, her voice raw. Jonah Hale said, it collapses one stone at a time, his coat soaked. Daniel Price said, if this is justice then it's crooked, his eyes hollow. Evelyn Ross, under an umbrella, said, crooked things stand longer than straight ones, her smile cruel. Clara Hayes said, she bleeds calm because she thinks she's untouchable, her tone soft but seething. Alex Ward said, the rain won't wash her hands clean, and his voice shook. Maya whispered, we will stain her mask with truth, piece by piece. Thunder rolled, dragging the moment into something more permanent, as if the city itself had heard and chosen sides. Later in the safe house, silence swallowed their words. Maya Reed said, we tore the mask but not the monster, her tone clipped. Jonah Hale said, the monster bleeds in shadows not in light, pacing the room. Daniel Price said, if we push further, we risk more blood, his voice unsteady. Clara Hayes whispered, blood is already on all our hands, sipping tea. Alex Ward said, at least now the world knows Lily existed. Sketchbook resting open on his lap. Maya touched the sealed letter, finally empty, and said, her memory is not erased. Jonah said, but memory alone won't hold her killers accountable. Daniel muttered, accountability isn't real in a world like this. Maya said, then we create one, her voice steadying. The hum of the fridge sounded like a vow. On the city bridge at twilight, the air smelled of rust and diesel. Maya Reed said, every chain has weak links, her eyes fixed on traffic below. Jonah Hale said, we found some, but not enough, gripping the railing. Daniel Price said, weak links still hold weight, his voice thick with doubt. Clara Hayes said, weight shifts when pushed from both sides, her words quiet but firm. Alex Ward said, I don't want to be a link, I want to be the break, his young voice fierce. Maya touched the steel rail and whispered, then break loudly, so the world hears. Jonah said, breaking hurts more than holding, his gaze far away. Daniel said, holding kills just the same. Their voices drifted across the water, carried into the coming night. At dawn, the group stood on the rooftop, the city stretching out beneath them. Maya Reed said, justice came crooked, but it came, her eyes burning with resolve. Jonah Hale said, crooked justice still leaves cracks in the wall, his tone quiet. Daniel Price said, we can rebuild from cracks if we don't quit, his voice uncertain but steadier than before. Clara Hayes whispered, rebuilding costs more than breaking ever did, her tone fragile. Alex Ward said, I'll pay the cost, because she was worth it, his voice fierce. Evelyn Ross, distant in another tower, watched silently through glass. Maya raised Lily's photograph and said, she stays alive in every breath we take. The sun broke the horizon, light flooding their faces. For a moment, silence felt like victory. The rooftop meeting was silent, except for the wind clawing at their coats. Evelyn Ross said, you think you've broken me, but power bends. It doesn't break. Her voice razor calm. Maya Reed said, chains bend until they snap, her tone steady, eyes unblinking. Jonah Hale said, the cracks are showing, even if you hide them, his voice low. Daniel Price muttered, she'll never admit the stain, doubt clouding his face. Clara Hayes whispered, admitting is not survival, but silence betrays her. Alex Ward stepped forward and said, your shadow ends here, his voice fierce. Evelyn smiled, thin and cruel, and said, my shadow covers more than you will ever see. Lightning ripped the sky, freezing their faces into statues of defiance and fear. In the empty hallway below, the lingering memory appeared in fragments. Maya Reed whispered, Lily, her breath catching. A child's laugh echoed faint, bouncing off marble. Jonah Hale said, we're chasing ghosts, though his eyes softened. Daniel Price said, ghosts remind us what we lost, his hands trembling. Clara Hayes touched the cold wall and murmured, she was never gone in your heart. Alex Ward said, I drew her face because I couldn't forget, his voice shaking. A faint melody hummed through the corridor, Lily's tune, fragile and haunting. Maya said, she was the reason we fought, and the reason we bleed. The sound faded like smoke, leaving silence too sharp to ignore. On the street, dawn broke sharp and cold. Maya Reed said, the verdict did not heal, but it wounded Evelyn, her voice steady. Jonah Hale said, "Wounds infect when ignored," his gaze scanning alleys. Daniel Price said, "Her power still runs deep," his tone weary. Clara Hayes said, "Roots rot when watered with lies," her face calm but pale. Alex Ward said, "I'll spend my life drawing her truth, so no one forgets," his eyes fierce. Evelyn Ross, watching from a black car, whispered, "You can't outrun the system," her shadow framed in tinted glass. Maya whispered, "I'll outlast it," and raised Lily's photo toward the rising sun. For a brief moment, the city felt lighter, though the war was far from done. In a quiet diner, exhaustion finally settled. Maya Reed said, "Justice is unfinished, but it moves," her voice softer. Jonah Hale said, "Every move drags cost," sipping bitter coffee. Daniel Price said, "Cost is survival's tax," his eyes hollow. Clara Hayes said, "Survival without meaning is still loss," her voice calm. Alex Ward sketched Lily again, saying, "Meaning is memory made permanent," his hand quick on paper. Maya whispered, "She's alive here in every mark." Outside, newspapers already spun headlines that twisted truth. Evelyn Ross's name appeared only in whispers. Jonah said, "Power hides behind silence," his tone edged. Maya said, "Then we shout until silence breaks." The diner hummed low, the storm replaced by quiet resilience. The rooftop at sunset became their final place of reckoning. Maya Reed said, "Justice doesn't end. It waits in shadows," her voice strong. Jonah Hale said, "Shadows stretch, but dawn still comes," his tone firm. Daniel Price said, "We rebuild on broken stones," his face tired but steady. Clara Hayes said, "Broken stones still hold weight," her words soft. Alex Ward said, "I'll carry her memory until it crushes or saves me," his voice steady. Evelyn Ross stood across on another rooftop, her silhouette against the blood-red sun. She said, "The system endures longer than you will." Maya whispered, "Maybe, but her name will outlast even you." The city exhaled, leaving behind a silence that refused to fade. One haunting truth remained. Lily's story was unfinished, but unforgettable.